All right, today we're gonna go through the plumbing on the intercooler setup for the 61 Impala. We're gonna mount all of the reservoirs and pumps and accessories for both the coolant for the engine and the coolant for the intercooler system, the heat exchanger for the air to water intercooler, as well as the oiling reservoir for the Rotrex. So let's get into it. I looked at my stash of spacers and I have some that are going to work. What I think I'm going to do is use this 5/16-18 stainless threaded rod. What I could do with the threaded rod is I could thread it in the hole. So let's just pretend that I threaded that, and then have the stud sticking out both sides. And that should be really secure, and it should make mounting really easy.
That shows the same as my intent when I was doing show about to launch on an X, which is do your best to say
He's the cutest.
Bring no real skills required, just be literate. And is the show a little bit?
And then for the little tiny cooling fan, the radiator will have a fan on the back side that'll be a pull-through fan. I will put for the little tiny fan on this one, and it'll be a push-through. So I did some more research. Actually, Jegs has a really nice technical document on this water pump and how best to use it. They do sell a additional bracket that you can mount on the back. It is meant to be sort of a bulkhead or through mount kind of pump. This is the outlet, so the flow direction is here. I'll show you on the engine block how a normal pump would work. So you have these two water jacket entry points on a normal block, and normally the water pump is right here. But where a mechanical pump, it would be getting pumped by the belts. Or if it was an electrical pump like I had on here previously, it would just be obviously electrically driven. And then there's an intake here. And that's what that is. It's an intake, not an output. So it would normally draw coolant from the bottom of the radiator up into the intake of the pump and then push it into the block where it then flows through, comes up through the heads, and then comes back out here. And here it would go back out towards the radiator. And that would be your complete circuit. So what will be different on this is the outlet obviously is a single outlet, and if you're trying to drive into the two holes of the block, you actually need to split this. I've got a threaded adapter that fits here. This has got an O-ring seal on it, which is different. It's not MPT, it's like an O-ring seal. And same with the one on the back. It'll go out into a split manifold that then drives into two hoses. So I'll have two separate hoses that go towards the engine block into those holes. It'll probably be some kind of L bracket somewhere like this. So that's a lot of stuff in the way, and I'm just thinking more and more that the intercooler can't go here. Like, there's going to be so much here. So what I think I'm going to do is bring the piping down here, past the radiator, probably just under the cooling fan, and then I'll mount the intercooler here. All right, here's a prototype of the bracket to mount the intercooler. So basically be tabs on it. He will not leave him alone. Stop. I found a piece of aluminum. I'm going to cut this out. Yeah, it's not quite it. I think I ordered a 45-degree elbow, so I'll try that. But all right, so here's the cool solution. This is what I had before, and they are about a 1/2 inch thick, and then the AN portion that comes out, the male AN portion comes out. That makes it only conceivable to use a female AN with a right angle to another male AN to try to direct it this way. And the problem with that is that it runs into the belt. So I found these. So I don't know if Messier, is that how you pronounce it? Messier. I don't know if they are the originator of this idea of the remote mount water pump, but they have certainly the most extensive catalog of parts that I can find. These mount with a conventional gasket, but it's obviously much thinner. It's about a 1/4 inch thick plate instead. It's got a female MPT thread in it. I think it's 3/4 inch MPT. Male -12 AN fitting on the other side. And this cuts probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch off of the depth of this thing. So now I'll be able to clear my belts. So the cool thing is I actually have 2 belt options now. This is a longer belt, but I've been using a ribbed pulley on the interior of the belt to push it up for tensioning. I could switch that out to a smooth pulley and push it down on a shorter belt that I still have from my first configuration. So I have 2 supercharger belt options now that I've got this problem out of the way. Look at that. That's amazing. To mount these is also going to be a little bit of a challenge because there's really no way to mount them. So I need some sort of clamp. So this thing has about a 2 1/4 inch diameter. This has basically about 3 1/4 inch diameter. Another thing I've been stuck on is the flow, direction, and mounting of everything for the intercooler. I know I've spent all this time with this heat exchanger. Hey, buddy. He's like, what are we doing? It's cold out here. And I've been wondering if this should be over there or if this should be turned around here. So either way, you got 2 lines going there. If I rotate it this way, I'd still have to have the pump over there. Let me think this through. I think I'm confusing myself. This is my problem. Let's say I put the pump here and I rotated it this way. The pump will go in, out, back out, through the tank, and then back into the bottom of the pump. That'd be a lot cleaner. Shiza. This is too big, so I made this one. This is oak, so hopefully it's hard enough, but forgiving enough to put a little dimple in my aluminum here. Hopefully I don't ruin it. All right, so I got these products in from Summit. This is the overflow tank for the radiator. This is the fill tank for the intercooler system. This will go into the pump somehow. I think this is a good spot for the Rotrex system. This cardboard backing fits almost perfectly right there. So I'll make a big mounting plate here, and I'll use these existing holes to mount it. And if the Rotrex system is on this side, that's good because it's right next to the fender. and that will allow me to run my oil lines over to the fender and then down the fender and over to that, so I can keep them tight and out of the way. This layout's just getting more and more convoluted. Yeah, this is kind of clunky. I can cut this down. This does not need to be right on the wall. I could build a plate where I actually have these guys like spaced out. This doesn't hit here, but where's the intercooler pipe go? Beep, boop, boop, bop, beep, beep, beep. Let's see. Oh. It's actually not terrible. Holy shit. Oh, there's just so much happening here. And I don't even know where the wheel arches are, really. I mean, there's stuff that needs to be happening here. This whole water pump situation is super annoying. So now what I'm going to do is take each component off. I'm going to clean everything up. It's all coming together, you know? It's all coming together. So the next part is I need to make a hole here so I can get hoses through here to here. So it's getting tight in here. So I got a right angle AN fitting here, and I'm going to use a silicone hose. It'll have an AN fitting on this side. I think it's a -12. It'll go to here as a 3/4 inch hose. That'll be the intake of this pump. It pulls it out of this reservoir. This will be the output of that pump. I'll use the same 3/4 inch hose, come up through here. It'll come up here, go through the radiator support, and probably go down to the bottom of the heat exchanger. I'll either use braided or the same silicone hose. I'll run it this way. The key problem being that I don't want it to interfere with this hood latch. So there's actually a recess here. I might tuck it up under here. It'll come probably through here into the reservoir for the intercooler. It'll come back out of the reservoir for the intercooler, come back up, probably come either in this little recess or right next to the other hole. It'll come back through, it'll follow the same path. It'll come through here, through the radiator support, and right into this guy. I ordered a bunch of grommets. If I'm using 3/4 inch line, I got 1 inch grommet, so I'll drill 1 inch holes, so I should have a little bit of leeway, and then the grommet on it will just keep it from chafing. I think once the fenders are connected, it will make all that pretty rigid. You can see down there at the bottom, the intake for the water pump is not perfect. It's kind of just barely touching the radiator, and the challenge will be how to get it to the radiator, because this is obviously the outlet for the radiator. So do I bring that out and around the intercooler pipe and then connect back up into the pump, or do I try to do a short run like this? I'll need some very flexible hose for that. So all that's decent. Obviously want to keep everything out of the way of the fender well. I can put the fenders on without the wheel liners and have all the clearance in the world. You know, once this car's running, I don't want the wheels throwing dirt and all kinds of stuff up into this engine bay after I spent so much time trying to make it look nice. You know, some version of it will look kind of like this and give the wheels plenty of room. Obviously, you have to account for the fact that the wheels turn. I'll somehow have those independently mounted inside the fender where you can't see them from the outside of the car. All right. I'm not liking this much. Looks sloppy, cluttered. They go up and then under the supercharger through, connect there. This isn't completely aligned. I thought it wouldn't be that big a deal. I was hoping the hose could just come through here and then kind of do a slight little kink and come over. Something I've been thinking about for a while is moving this for a number of reasons. All this is a catch can for the radiator, just in case it overflows. So it doesn't really need to be here. And the exit for the overflow shoots in this direction, and I've got it over there, obviously. So I'd have to have like a hose looping around like this and whatever. I I didn't have a lot of room over here to put it, but it's not impossible to put it here. I could fit it probably here. All right, that's a little better. So I've got grommets coming. I'll put them in here. Keep that from chafing. On the Summit reservoir, the MPT fittings are different. This one's a 1/2 inch. That one down there on the bottom is a 3/4 inch. I was doing everything with AN fittings, and I made the first line that would go under here as a braided AN line. When I realized that because of the fact that this pump has hose barb fittings on it, it means that I would have all kinds of challenges moving from braided AN to silicone hose, and I thought maybe I could just put AN fittings on the end of these silicone hoses. Can't really do that. So I just decided to make everything hose barbs. So this is a hose barb down here to there. That should be a relatively straightforward connection. This hose barb will come up, go through here, and go into the heat exchanger. Again, I was going to make that all AN fittings, but since that's a hose barb, this will need to be a hose barb. Theoretically, I could do AN from here into there, but then I'd have to go back to hose barb to come back to here. Or I could do AN out of there to here. So, you know, that's still TBD. It would look kind of funny because then I'd have like hose barbs and AN fittings and everything would be all different. The inner hose diameter I'm working with is 3/4, and that's -12. So yeah, 1/2 inch MPT, 1/2 inch ID. So is that a 1/2 inch hose barb? Well, let's look at this hose. This is Vibrant Performance silicone hose. The ID of this is about 3/4, which is the OD of this 1/2 inch hose barb. The ID of the hose is 3/4, which is the OD of the hose barb. The OD of the hose is a little over 1 inch. So it's all super confusing, right? So I'm changing up the fittings. The idea here is, again, I got the wrong freaking fitting. This side is -16. I thought that this side inside the water pump was -16. It's not, it's apparently smaller. It's probably -12. I'll need to check, but this straight thread here doesn't fit, which sucks because I had these, which said they were -16, but I think this side's -16. The hose barb side is -16. The other part isn't. So you can see that it's slightly smaller. So I have to figure out what that is and then get a new one of these that's got the -16 on that side and the smaller straight thread on that side. At any rate, what I've been trying to do here is create a system. It'd actually be better if I could get a -16 female to -16 female rather than -16 female to -16 male, because then this is also -16. So these guys need to mate up together. But this is a super nice piece. This is Earl's. This is called a water crossover tube or a coolant crossover tube. These are both -12. So I can do a right angle fitting here and a straight fitting there. All right, this ain't gonna work. Whoops. One problem is that this is a I think it's a 1.5 inch. So is the water neck here. Down there at the bottom, it's 1.75 inches. And then down here, that's 1.25 inches. So it's all kinds of dumb. So all the different AN fittings I try to get for that just don't work. But this Jegs sells these Jegs specific adapters. So this is the 1.25 inch SAE thread with the O-ring to a -16 AN. So I got a -16 AN female to male elbow. And it fits, but it's touching here on the water pump. So what do? Well, this needs to come out just a little bit. And I've got spacers right here for that pump. So I could space it off just a little further, maybe with these. And if I wanted to be extra thorough, I could actually bring this guy in a little bit so I can use some of these thinner spacers. So I'm take all this off again and do that. That's so much cleaner. Ton more clearance here underneath the Rotrex oil filter. Lots of clearance here between the dash 16 AN fitting on the water pump and the water pump for the intercooler. Oh man, but I might have to, probably gonna have to cut part of this bracket here so that I can get a good fit from the outlet of the reservoir tank into the inlet of the intercooler pump. So the trick with Teflon tape is I'm going to get a nice flat wrap. You don't want it to double up too much. I'm screwing it in this way. So I want the tape to wrap over this way, because as it gets pulled, as it's going, do you see that? I want it to wrap over this way, because as it gets pulled, I want it to smooth it out. I don't want it to go the opposite direction. If I had a loose end facing this way and I was screwing it in, it would want to unwind itself. And so I don't want to do that. I'm also keeping it back a few threads because I don't want this stuff to come off and get into the coolant line. You know, I could use like a Teflon paste instead. Both can put particles into your stream, but for an MPT type thread, you need some kind of Teflon tape. All right. Just like I said, this one goes up. So this will be the inline. It doesn't really matter, but just for the sake of ease of plumbing, the line will come through the radiator support and come down here and feed in. That's the inlet to this heat exchanger. It'll go through the heat exchanger, come back out, come out there, and then I can go that way towards the intercooler reservoir. So here's the water manifold. It's using this nice Earl's piece. These are 12 AN male elbows. And then here's a right angle 16 AN to a hose end coupling. So it just barely fits in here. It's out of the way of the belt, just barely. It's out of the way of the intercooler piping. Okay, I finally got the right grommets, so that's nice. That will prevent chafing there. It's a pretty big hole I have to drill though, so that means this one needs to be widened, and that's going to take some time with the die grinder. I'll clean these silicone hoses up so that they look a little bit prettier. You can see it comes through, goes down in to the nipple fitting down there at the bottom, and I've got I need to lengthen this hose, but you can see it comes up and it actually tucks nicely under here. Oh, it's running into my bracket and that. Which I think the bracket can be fixed once it's tightened down. Won't hit it there. Yeah, the first part was really getting everything situated where it needed to be and checking clearances and having to take things apart, put them back together, take them apart, put them back together multiple times. So just check on clearances and getting all that arranged. The second part was figuring out the hoses, what types of hoses to use, where to run the hoses, what's the most efficient way to run the hoses. But I'm just trying to show you, like, this is a very iterative process and it's taken a lot of time to sort this out. I'm pretty happy with the intercooler mount for the most part. It's holding it where it's supposed to be. It looks okay. I mean, you can tell it's handmade, but I kind of like it that way. I want it to have a little bit of a raw feel to it. I like the look of all the metal. I like the bare aluminum and the stainless and some of the chrome pieces. I like just the gray metal. It looks nice. I'll obviously have to make the final install on everything. I'll have to check the tightness of all the threads. I'll have to make sure that there's Teflon tape where Teflon tape needs to be. I'll have to make sure that there's pipe clamps where pipe clamps need to be. And one part that's going to be a bit of a challenge here, which you might see in the second part, is the radiator and getting that appropriately plumbed up. The biggest problem being what's down here at the water pump. One thing I can't forget to do, and I need to remind myself, I'm reminding myself right now, is put a stop or a petcock in the bottom of the heat exchanger for the intercooler. Because right now that's open. And if I fill this thing up, it's just going to spew stuff all over the ground. So I need to remember to do that. Who knows, in a few months when I'm starting this thing up, I might be like, why is there water leaking all over the place? And if you like these videos, appreciate you subscribing, share with your friends, hit the like button. That's not just me begging. This channel is something that I've been sustaining for a long time. I've had a very slow amount of growth because I don't publish videos that often, but this is something I really enjoy to do. And frankly, someday I'd love to be able to just do this and only do this. I think that's probably the happiest I could be. So if you like this content and you want to see more and you want to support that goal of mine, I'd appreciate if you do any of those things to help the channel. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate you being here. This is David Hill with Solve Fix Build. Thanks.